Hi, my name is Anne Joutsenvelta. I am UXPA International Courses Chair, and I'm here today with Jen Romano, who is our co-chair for the conference, John Pagonis, and Sotiris, uh, Sotiropoulos, and we are talking about all things about UX and the course that they are presenting at the conference. So let's kind of first talk about how did your career path led you to this domain?
UX research.
Yeah, UX in UX domain.
It's a very interesting one. I used to be a software engineer, uh, as it says in my mini bio, and I used to also coach teams in software production. And one of the main problems always was the collection, the elicitation, understanding of requirements. So came a time where I was the CTO of a small startup, and we're building some system based on my PhD. And we, just because it worked, the technology people will come. At that point, Sotiris joined us as the designer of the team, and he basically made a very good point that users won't come unless we cover some user needs. So, so basically, after the startup failed, if you like, because we didn't put the user first, I decided to go really deep and follow Sotiris in helping us not make the same mistake, i.e., build something which is not needed. Because you have utility and you have usability, and that's part of our course as well. So I went very deep into helping others conduct user research, a lot of product discovery, if you like, as well as evaluative, but a lot of generative work to help teams figure out if something is needed before they build it, so that they avoid wasting time and money building the wrong thing. And I was thankful to Sotiris because he got me into that, and he he helped me actually go deeper to UX research. It was always in the back of my mind, obviously, but I needed an expert to help me navigate. And the rest is history. Since I was coaching teams, I then went into consultancy and consulting in UX research.
Awesome, interesting. And Sotiris, what was your journey to UX?
Yeah, I'd say that having a background in UX design, as John mentioned earlier, helped me a lot. Going through in different solutions, creating different solutions for different teams, kind of reaching a point where it was easy to create a solution, but you want to make sure that you are solving the right problem, and you needed to see which of the solutions would apply the best and will solve the best problems, the more problems for the customers. I think that's where something started itching me, and moved closer to research, incrementally initially, and then completely to research, leaving the solutionizing and the design to people that are way better off doing that. Was focusing more on solutions, jumped completely into UX research and trying to find out more about the problem and the user needs, rather than kind of clarify a particular solution or how to resolve this. That's the long story short.
Okay. Interesting. And what's going on right now? What are the things that you are doing in your kind of life and in work right now? Themes, are there kind of specific themes that you're working on? Or...
So now I'm helping a team, an internal development, an internal cloud team inside a company to conduct evaluative and generative, mostly research for developers. So the guys are building the internal cloud platform team, internal cloud for the company. And we have everyone else in the company, all of the other, because it's a tech company, all of the other developers, testers, and everyone else as our clients. And so we're building the platform, and the clients are developers. So I'm doing a lot of developer research around observability, monitoring, and internal development platforms. I have mostly done enterprise-related research with complicated and complex data-heavy systems. So I've done less of retail or consumer-oriented projects, mostly enterprise and B2B projects, which is, well, I guess, not almost by accident, because I like helping people and seeing the immediate reward. So if you help a colleague, then it's just, you know, it's more immediate. Sometimes the enterprise takes ages. That's a different story. So yeah, so I'm working with developers lately.
Yeah, on my side, I am a mixed methods researcher, part of a Meta team, specifically within the infrastructure team, data infra team within Meta, and working on specifically monitoring and observability platforms, which helps practically engineers to create the internal tools that help assess and monitor all the other internal tools from the other side. So anything that has to do with alerting, or imagine that anything that might break, engineers need to fix on a kind of instant response rate. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. It sounds that you have transitioned to UX from like a neighboring fields, or like a change of role within UX field. Like, what are the challenges that you have faced when you did this kind of transition? Or did you feel kind of, was it easy, or?
Well, the transition is never the problem, because I mean, Sotiris didn't transition. I mean, he was a UX designer. For me, it was it didn't feel like a lot of transition, because I was helping team before figure out things. I was helping team after figure out things. However, every time you introduce UX research into a software production machinery, you have a transformation project in your hands. So I had my fair bit of that, moving to teams that were building software and helping them figure out if they need to build something. So a lot of interaction with product management and engineering to if something needs to be done, how we build the backlog, how we conduct product discovery, and then how we evaluate our solution. So the transition is like zero effort. The field, though, has been more challenging than any of the other fields I've been in the respect that we are the people, UX researchers, that basically tell you that your baby is ugly. So
no one likes that.
Nobody likes that. I mean, your baby is ugly. They shouldn't become a model, but very good at wrestling. Do you want to discuss this? No, my baby is beautiful. Okay. So during a downturn, it's even worse, because we are the second in line to go. And as a consultant, you gotta have a thick skin, obviously. It happens to you. So first you get content designers go, then you get researchers, then everyone else. So that's interesting, yeah. But yeah, the transition was not difficult. The staying in the field is interesting. A couple of years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, we conducted research with other researchers just for fun. So we just did that, and we interviewed researchers across the world, and we found that many of them wanted to change careers because nobody would love them because of the bad news, because they're the messenger, because of the struggle. And that made us think, but we didn't give up anyway. So Yeah, the transition was not a problem. Never was a problem because it was natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about it as a transition until very late when I realized, oh, what's happening here? I'm still helping people, but in a different way. I don't know if you can call it transition for Sotiris, but yeah, I don't know. Sotiris, what do you think?
Yeah. Maybe it's a change of role within the field, which is common.
Yeah, different
Yeah.
user group, right? Like oftentimes we find that the internal products, like they get the least amount of UX research. It's like you just have to put up with it no matter what state it's in. Companies tend to focus
Yeah.
on external facing products. So, it's still it's a different user group that is oftentimes forgotten or not included for whatever reasons, budget, time, and the things that are part of our roles. Yeah, I'd love to hear. So, Tiris, there's many people who want to move from design to research. Um, those are the people I'm sure they go in both directions. Those are the people I tend to talk to as a UX researcher, right? Like, and as a coach, people reach out to me and they want to transition in from design. I'd love to hear more about your experience.
Yeah, I think it's smoother of a transition compared to, being I don't know, an engineer or being a PM and wanting to switch to research. So all things considered, I've known people that have transitioned from architects or from completely different professions too, and then they bring a lot to the table. Like they bring a lot of external knowledge and a different kind of thinking, and it's always helpful. I wouldn't say it's exactly a challenge per se. I mean, as I referred to it earlier, you get to the point of moving from solutionizing to focusing on the problem and being the person that brings that always in the conversation, just coming back again and hey, let's focus on the one problem. Let's not like generate multiple solutions all the time, which is it brings people in a lot of realignment in the conversations, especially with planning, road mapping. A slight challenge, I would say, as a researcher, like having transitioned from that, is it's quite easy to collaborate very well with the product team because you've seen how a product is being crafted in many different ways, and having designed, stuff, it makes it easier for you. With the methodologies themselves, I found it's easier to work with teams that have lower maturity, like they actually to have no maturity at all when it comes to research because they're like what we call a tabula rasa, like an empty board, right? They have no knowledge, they have no previous experience with research, and you get to introduce them to that. You get to apply your own approaches and ideas, but if they have previous knowledge and that knowledge is kind of applied in a skewed way, let's say, or they have some misconceptions, you have first to replace the old knowledge and introduce the new stuff in, and people are very hard, to change. We all have that. So they're being possibly familiar with other approaches and methodologies, and now it takes more time to introduce them to the new stuff. That's not always, of course, a problem, but it is a challenge that has happened on many occasions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What is there kind of any advice you would give to someone who is transitioning to UX research or in any role within the UX field or coming from outside, like you said that you had colleagues with were architects. I used to work in a team that had even hired an opera director in a team. And so what advice would you give to these people who are seeking the new horizons in their life in UX?
Yeah. John, do you want to first?
No, go on.
Okay. I'd say that the first thing is that research requires some detailed work. So if you're being specifically analytical, regardless of your previous job, like architects is a very good example, are very analytical, right? They're very their attention to detail is extreme, right, in what they do. So having that is and having a methodological approach in doing things, I think it helps a lot. At the end of the day, everything else is about communication because you'll be communicating a lot with users and you will be communicating a lot with stakeholders in the product team. So it's all about communicating properly, showcasing impact, making sure that everyone is involved. I think these are more soft skills rather than anything else. Like the hard skills are easier to get. I wouldn't say easy, but easier to get. Like the refinement that the job requires is more on the human aspect and the communication aspect and the transparency aspect. Everyone should be involved at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end of research, and creating this kind of loop. And more above everything else, to have this trust with your team that you're going to go out there, you're going to bring them data, you're going to bring back insights that are going to be helpful for them, and they will unblock their current job, whatever that might be. There might be an engineer, you want to unblock that engineer to moving forward, right? Or a designer, unblock them in some decisions, some product decisions they need to make. All these things kind of are more useful rather than being extremely rigorous in your research, right?
On top of that, one thing I tell my teams, especially when I'm managing teams, is that our work has to withstand scrutiny. Because whether you like it or not, whether people do this because they have ulterior motives or because it's their nature, they will try to pick your work apart and find problems to intentionally or not discredit it, because that is easier. Why is it easier? Because typically your work puts them out of comfort. And the communication that Sotiris said is a very important part of that. But facts and evidence will hurt someone, especially if they don't have a high confidence, which, as we know, happens in themselves. I mean, so you must make sure that when someone wants to scrutinize your work, it has to withstand scrutiny, and that is, it takes a certain type of person to be able to do that. How you communicate obviously is important, to Sotiris' point. Whatever he said is a must for me, not, it's a must, as well as your work has to withstand scrutiny, because you're only as good as your last gig. If your last gig is a screw up because there was a fault there and you got discredited, you're done.
Okay. Do you think kind of mean that like when you talked about that people don't want to hear that their baby is ugly, so they try to find a ways of your research process? Okay, you were wrong. My baby is not ugly.
Yes, especially in product discovery and generative work. In evaluative, okay, you might miss something. It's a lot of stuff happening. But in terms of helping, if you like, teams, management, decide the fate of budget and people, it's a different ball game. Yeah, and you have to be really careful. It's also the same case with evaluative work, obviously, because you come after the fact, and if they've spent a lot of money, but you have to be careful, and you must be of a certain mentality where you expect your work to be scrutinized, and yes, people trust you, but they will try to challenge you and verify that everything's cool, that the method was right, the data, what they are, etc., etc. And sometimes it could be taxing on you because we're all under pressure, time. Yeah, and it's difficult. And sometimes you gotta have a thick skin, obviously. So yeah, that's a point for me. I sound too negative. I'm just tired. Yeah, I'm not negative.
Yeah.
I don't think it's negative. I think it's honest and what people need to be reminded of, right? We often are like pumping people up and, really positive, which, I think is all equally valuable. But I think reminding people that you're only as good as your last gig, or you have to learn how to stand behind your work, and that the job goes beyond the job, right? It's not just doing the work, but it's standing behind your work. It's making sure every day you are doing your best work. You can't get lazy and start producing garbage, or that is what you will be known for. Learning about business and being able to talk about how UX research, UX design, how UX fits in with the broader business goals, right? Like there's all these other components of our job that we often don't talk about. We're talking about how to like get better at designing and getting better at research, but there's all these other elements that I think are important to discuss.
Good questions, by the way. How are you going to use them? The answers, I mean.
Well, at this,
Anna?
we're going to talk about your course. We'd love to hear what you're talking about at UXPA, and then we're going to share with people how you think, so people can come and meet you in person at UXPA and get to know you a bit more.
At the day, you mean, or prior to the event?
Yeah, prior to the event. So,
Oh,
okay, I think there's a good kind of moment to switch to talk about your course. So, UXPA International, our annual conference is in June 16 to 19, and you are teaching a course on 16 on usefulness measurement applied, and then there's
yes.
a lot of stuff. So how did you
So
come
you're going
up
to
with
promote
this
our course?
topic?
Yeah.
Yes,
You're going to promote our course?
Yeah, yes.
How are you going to promote it? You haven't told me the best part.
Yeah, but if you tell, how did you come up with this topic?
Oh, it's stuff we've done in the past at different companies. So we thought, yeah, it's probably going to be useful for other people. Basically, the course has 4 parts. Okay, the background for the measurement instruments and how you measure usefulness. Okay, the hands-on part, how we analyze data, how we operationalize the data and the process deployed in the enterprise and stuff. And the fourth part is the communication. That's what this was saying is so important. So 4 parts. Yeah. So the background, the analysis, the operationalization, and the communication. 4 parts that happen always when you conduct research. And that's an instrument, UX-Lite. I mean, I don't know if this year Jim Lewis in the committee. It's an instrument that we've used a lot to measure usefulness at different clients, because we've been both contractors and consultants. And we thought, we've seen it so many times, we've done it so many times. It's useful. And as Louis said, you cannot go wrong by measuring usefulness. It's the most basic thing, utility and usability. So it does no harm to measure it and help others.
Awesome. So, kind of, who do you think that who would be benefiting most attending your course?
Most in terms of what?
Yeah. So what kind of people? Is it more useful for somebody who is new to the field or more tenured? Is there kind of differences between roles? Is it more useful for somebody as a researcher, designer, product manager, engineering?
We put in the course that it's a bit of intermediate, if I remember correctly, but because I just want to be in, but really everyone, because as Louis said, it's so fundamental. If it doesn't do the right thing, or if it's extremely difficult to do, then you cannot use it. So just all levels of. In terms of domains, we've taught we haven't done this course before per se, but we've taught similar courses and we've done it at work, and we train internal, obviously, stakeholders and colleagues at all levels. I've seen BAs, product owners, developers, researchers, designers benefit from it, not necessarily because they apply it, but because they understand it and then they ask for it, especially POs. Yeah. So, and it's so fundamental, really. It's like, everyone can join, as far as I'm concerned, because it's not like rocket science. It's more, once you unpack it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone can do it. Unit experience for the interpretation part, because you must have seen a lot of cases to understand what it means when you look at the visualizations or the numbers. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, Sotir, do you want to add something to it?
No, I think John covered everything. The only thing I'll add is like from the reason we chose this particular kind of subject to discuss and kind of build a workshop around was that there is a very kind of common need across multiple product teams to assess their user experience at a fundamental level and to assess each and every iteration and every implementation from the point of release or before release and afterwards. Like answering questions such as how do we know our user experience is good? What does good mean in the first place? How to assess, how to measure that? So all these kind of comparatives, if you put them together, they lead to some research that the qual aspect of research will not suffice. You need something more than that, something that will add, it will not exclude qual, but it will add something extra. And that's where measurement comes in. There are different ways of measuring, the user experience, of course, a huge amount, a large volume of instruments to do that. We picked some that we feel that are applying to the most kind of common situations and that can measure fundamental constructs that help a lot both the team to understand better what the customers need more from the products, but also they show the way forward of what do we need to improve and where do we have to make those trade-offs, because at the end of the day, all these metrics, that's what they show, like different trade-offs. We have to remove this step, but we have to add more on that step of the journey, the user journey. And this all becomes apparent when you start applying these metrics and we start measuring different things, comprehension, usability, utility, and all that we include. So that's why, as John said, I think that this applies to many people that are interested, regardless of their background, they're interested about the progress they're making. I've talked with engineers that they're very into understanding, like, I'm building something. I've spent like ages, like weeks on building this new feature. Does this have any impact, right? What's the return on investment of my effort? I think that's something fundamental that anyone in a product team might have. And of course, some people like POs and PMs do that on a higher level.
The ultimate question we want to help people answer, and that goes back to when we're conducting this research with the researchers, is have we done a good job? How does the team know that they've done a good job? You need to close the loop for measurement and other ways to answer the question whether you've done a good job or not, and therefore to course correct. So have we done a good job? Let's measure.
That's a very, very important topic, and a lot of individuals and a lot of teams have in UX have failed in demonstrating the organizations and leadership that actually having them involved in a process is a good thing for the company. So, but if you go to the topic, like, what are you looking forward from UXPA International?
To geek out, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
To deliver a pristine course, because it's not very often, it happens every N years that I can actually find the time, mind, and everything to work on a new workshop with Sotiris. So I don't want this one to be the worst. I want this one to be the best. But that's me. And to geek out after that. That's why we're doing it on the 16th, and then I can geek out for 3 days. But that's like very selfish, yeah.
Yeah, I think like just to the point of, in a workshop, you get to discuss a lot with people that are attending. about, their own use cases, their own struggles, their own challenges. It's kind of a research by itself if you think about it. So having this ability to discuss these different scenarios and see how metrics or specific methodologies apply to different cases is very useful. And it has been very useful to us as well, because we elaborate on that, we iterate, we find new ways, and sometimes, research might not be the answer, but we have to go through it and see all the different challenges that are out there. And it's good to hear about these stories as well.
And finally, like where people can find you from a conference, obviously, but if they want to reach out to you beforehand or afterwards, what is the best way?
For me, I think it's LinkedIn.
Same,
because
LinkedIn will be the same.
It's the more ubiquitous other than email way of reaching out, but it's the easiest way to discover that I'm out there, I guess. But yeah, I think that's probably the easiest one. Obviously at the event, but yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you both in person in Amsterdam in just a couple short months here. Thanks for joining.
So what are you going to do with the write-up? You haven't told me.
Well, with this recording, what we plan to do is add something nice to the beginning, add something nice to the end, like about UXPA, and then share the recording. We want people to get to know our course presenters and what you'll be presenting there and what they can expect. And then I'm hoping also, we'll see, because obviously the projects balloon into these bigger things. I'm hoping also for some nice little clips, but we'll share those with you before sharing them publicly.
Sure. So are these clips going to go public or just for the attendees?
It's a public. Yeah, we are
you're going to put them on the website? I should have dressed up. I haven't shaved. Okay.
Shall we redo it next week?
No. Well, we could, but okay.
Just use some filters around, some stuff.
Yeah, I cannot even compete with Sotiris, so I have to save to actually contrast that. But so it's going to be, you're going to clip out elements, just put them online.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. You should have told me to. All right.
To dress nicely.
Yeah.
No, it's better this way, like more like a human.
Yeah, it's more natural this way. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So when's the material going online? Because I haven't seen any other videos online.
No, we just started these last week. So we've been and then we're looking for a volunteer right now to help us make some clips. So we'll share that with you shortly.
Super. So we can download the original material as well for our records.
Would you like it? I think that's a good idea, actually.
We always download the original raw material from the YouTube, because people put it on YouTube. So before they release it, they put it in the higher, not that I want to see my face in high resolution, they typically put in a private YouTube thing, and we download it for our records, but that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Whenever you're ready, I don't care.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
That's great.
Super.
Thank you so much for the lovely chat, and thank you for the lovely questions.
Thank you.
Good questions. You've done this before, huh? I gotta go to a user session. Okay.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
Bye.